Talking today about prepping like Batman, and I'm going to go through all the ways I have and still plan to be prepared for anything. The prevailing nerd lore of Batman is that with enough prep time, he can create a plan, take all the necessary steps, and do all the right training to handle anybody and anything, no matter how extreme. So again, taking my cue from a fictional comic book character, I've committed myself to be prepared in every possible way. And today I'm going to go over exactly what that means.
The term preparation, or prepping, can sound a little conspiratory and melodramatic to you. And what's more, I won't pretend that I don't lean into such tendencies.
Maybe I should start by explaining exactly what I mean by preparation. As Mike Glover, former Special Forces and CEO of Fieldcraft Survival puts it, it's about creating more resilient habits to be ready for whatever comes your way. That means it's not just about stockpiling tools and supplies for survival in an emergency, but also to train to be prepared both physically and mentally to face extreme situations. That's how I like to think of it. If you like Batman comics, you know about his contingency plans for, well, everything, including but not limited to his playbook on how to stop his superpowered friends should they ever get out of hand. But you also know how he's prepared his body and mind to handle any challenge that comes his way. But this isn't a persuasive speech for me to convince you to think how I do. Like I said, I just want to share a few ideas, methods, and plans on how I've tried to and try to continue to be more prepared. So let's get into it. You probably figured I'd start here, me being a strength and conditioning coach and all that. Or maybe you're watching this and you have no clue who the hell I am, which in that case, you weren't figuring anything at all.
Either way, I think it's important to start here because nothing you do to prepare for a difficult challenge or crisis matters if you're not physically prepared to deal with it. If I'm not strong, conditioned, and physically resilient enough to carry all my gear through difficult terrain, I'll just end up passed out or dead with my super cool go bag on my back, packed with all the right things.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm personally training to be hyper ready.
I'm training to withstand all types of physically demanding activities, to develop all the base physical attributes that have comprehensive benefits to improving any and all complex physical skills. Physical attributes like max strength, relative strength, and strength endurance, long, moderate, and short intensive endurance, absolute power and speed, along with the capacity to repeat these over and over, athletic coordination, balance, and physical intelligence, full body active and passive mobility, durability, and stability.
Yes, it's a long list, but there's more than one set way to train this. But you need to have a good plan to make sure that you don't misuse your time and energy. If you're interested in seeing a sample program similar to what I do, I'll show you how to get it at the end of this video. Of course, physical training is only one part of the equation. Mental resilience is also a huge part. Training in martial arts or learning emergency trauma care may give you confidence, but it's hard to predict how you'll react to a highly stressful or dangerous situation that you've never experienced.
It's not uncommon to see people who have dedicated a lot of time to fight training or other forms of so-called self-defense systems who forget everything they've learned when faced with a truly random, unpredictable, uncontrolled, violent situation. Or those who have learned emergency trauma care who freeze when a real bad situation escalates and they see something shocking for the first time.
One of my martial arts coaches often talks about finding ways to pressurize training. That basically means purposely finding ways to agitate and stress yourself so that you can experience and learn to deal better with the type of heightened panic mental states you'd experience in a real situation. You may need to get pretty creative on how to do this, and I'll give you some examples specifically for fight training later. But while pressurizing fight training, trauma care, and survival training is great, it's still not enough.
You need to learn to become familiar with your own mental fear and anxiety by voluntarily exposing yourself and adapting to extreme physiological stress. There's an automatic physiological reaction that happens in these extremely stressful situations that causes our hearts to race, blood pressure to increase, and our breath to shorten, which immediately makes our minds go into a panicked, heightened state where we can become paralyzed. So although we can't know how our minds will react to a real emergency or scary situation, we can become familiar with our body's responses to external stress and learn to recognize and even regulate it to use it properly and hopefully prevent that negative loop to our minds.
So I've tried to do this with meditation, breath work, heat exposure, but especially and most effectively with cold exposure.
Regularly getting in a cold tub can help train your mind to stay calm, allowing you to think clearly and act decisively when it matters most. Learning to resist the overwhelming urge to get the hell out of the water in the first 30 to 60 seconds builds control over the huge wave of panic that your body feels, and as a result, your mind experiences. You're forced to learn how to slow and control your rapid breath and quiet your hysteric mind. What's even cooler is that if you do this regularly, you can actually change your baseline reaction to any type of extreme external stress that you experience in life. You will react more calmly even to types of stressful situations that you've never encountered. It can influence how your mind perceives and then deals with stressful situations, allowing room for less mindless reaction and more focused attention. And that's something that can actually prepare you better for the unknown. You may be in a totally unique situation, scarier and more pressured than anything you've ever dealt with, and you may not be prepared for it because really, how could you be? But when your body and your mind starts down that fight or flight response, you're not only familiar with the feeling, but also have practiced how to deal with the automatic response and can possibly rein it in and harness it.
Although I've already mentioned martial arts training, there's more to combat preparation and awareness. And yes, I'm purposely using the word combat because I like that it sounds more dramatic.
Before I mentioned my martial arts coach teaching me the importance of pressurizing training. This could mean full live sparring if you've never done it before, or as my coach has also suggested, participate in melee sparring sessions where a whole group of people would engage in an every human for themselves type of situation. You not only have to be aware of the person right in front of you, but also the others who could be to the side or behind you, waiting to blindside you. Yet it's an unnerving thought, and maybe sounds a little weird to you. And that's the point of it, to come as close to experience the feelings you would in some type of street riot that you can't escape. Because the goal of any fight training should be to ingrain the best response to occur automatically without thought, to move the right way, defend yourself in a way that would actually save your life, and attack with the right tools. Because when push comes to shove, your body needs to respond instinctively, without hesitation when you're in a truly violent and potentially life-threatening situation. Combat sports, martial arts are a part of this, but it's not only about knowing how to grapple or throw punches and kicks. It's about studying strategies for violent struggles, knowing when to fight and when to flee. It's developing situational awareness, being able to assess your surroundings and identify potential dangers before they escalate. This also includes understanding weapons and strategy, not only how to use them, but learning safety in handling them, and equally as important, understanding how others could and would use them against you. Regardless of what your thoughts are in dealing with knives, firearms, and other weapons, or in keeping them in your house, understanding their use and recognizing potential threats can mean the difference between life and death. You should at the very least learn to recognize the signs that somebody may be concealing them and in what ways they may use them to attack you or your loved ones. Don't be the person who deludes themselves into thinking that you will always be able to see if and when someone pulls out a gun or a knife. And please, for the love of Odin, don't think that your striking, grappling, or popular self-defense system training is going to protect you against these types of weapons. You hear the same question over and over. What do I do if the guy has a knife? The real answer, though not going to make you any friends, is that you better have a knife as well and have trained how to use it. Or you need to immediately run like hell and make sure he can't catch up with you. I practice a few different combat sports like Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai, but one martial art in particular, a Filipino blade-based martial art, is my intentional effort to prepare for the most violent situations, to learn to deal with that very knife question.
You may not want to train this regularly like me, and you may really hate the idea of owning any type of weapon. That's your personal choice. But if you are at all interested in making yourself more prepared for whatever could happen, you should at least look up a weekend course from a company or an instructor that talks about gun safety and possible knife attacks. Disaster preparedness with first aid supplies, go bags, and survival equipment. That's where most people's minds go to when you talk about preparedness, which is why I purposely saved this one for last. But having the right supplies for an emergency can't be overstated, and if I'm being quite honest, this is probably where I'm lacking the most. But never fear, I'm actively collecting more tools and supplies, and in the process learning about what's more essential to be prepared.
I've already been talking for too long now, so I'll quickly break down 3 ways I focused on improving preparation over the last year and a half or so: packing go bags, first aid supplies, and improving transportation. The first is survival supplies for go bags. The go bags, also called disaster bags or bug out bags, should be packed and ready for each member of your family. They should have clothes, essential toiletries, essential medicine, non-perishable food, water, matches, batteries, or other power sources, and first aid supplies, among other things. Personally, I also have a family go bag that I keep in my truck with supplies to make a quick outdoor shelter that protects from cold or heat, survival warming blankets, waterproof ponchos, supplies for fishing, water treatment supplies for dirty or contaminated water, rope, cords, radios, flashlights, lanterns, glow sticks, utility tools like shovels and axes, and objects to start fire. So I'm thinking by now this may sound like a long list written by a crazy person to some of you. That's okay, they call Batman paranoid too, until it all hit the fan. And I apparently don't have a problem with using a fictional comic book character as a standard for which to assess my mental stability. But I also don't see this bag as something only useful for some crazy apocalyptic scenario. It has supplies for the more likely circumstances that my truck breaks down on some dark highway while on a road trip with my family.
But should the zombies come, I got that covered too.
The first aid supplies go along with the go bags, but it's important to build up a surplus and keep kits in more than one place. So I have kits in my house, in my bags, and also in my truck. I've been trying to buy more and more supplies to build up a reserve that will last. I've also made sure that these kits are filled with supplies that would help with real trauma, and not just with band-aids for minor boo-boos. I have tourniquets, splints, burn creams, bandages for burns, slings, and more.
Last, there's transportation. This was pretty straightforward for me.
I wanted a vehicle that was useful in an emergency, one that could make it through difficult terrain, drive safely in bad weather, and transport all the things I needed. So a couple years back, I bought a pickup truck. I've been very happy with my truck, and it's comforting to know I can load it up with everything I need and go anywhere in an emergency. I've also been slowly trying to prepare and improve it with better tires, storing some emergency bags in there, and adding organizational storage so that I could quickly and easily load it up with anything I need in an actual emergency.
There's actually a lot more supplies I want to buy and upgrades I want to make to my truck, which I eventually will, but kids are expensive and I have too. So there you have it, my take on being prepared, inspired by none other than the Batman himself. That may have been a lot for some of you, and after hearing this, you quite possibly think now I'm a crazy doomsday prepper. And I've thought through this probable outcome and decided that I'm okay with it.
Then there may be the guy listening to this with a bunker in his basement, shaking his head that such a novice would put together such an incomplete video on survival and preparation. That's okay too. As I said, I'm still figuring it all out. And I'm making moves, son.
But for my Goldilocks audience, I hope this gave you something to think about and pointed you in the right direction to start taking your own steps to become more prepared. Always prepared for everything, no matter how preposterous the situation might be, like Batman.
And if you're interested in starting a training program similar to mine, check out the link in the description below titled the Prep Like Batman Training Program.
So if you found this even mildly entertaining, leave a like. And if it got you thinking or you have an idea you want to throw out there, leave it in the comments. And I'll see you next time they shine my light in the sky.